What is going on, everybody? So, welcome back to the channel. And you are saying, good Lord, he's starting with the bourbon early. But I'm on vacation. And so you are seeing this video in the morning, but I actually am shooting it the night before. I'm doing that because we're driving. We're on a road trip. I'm in my motorhome. And internet speed and that kind of stuff. Figure I would just shoot these the night before, and then you'll see them at 8 o'clock in the morning. It'll be more consistent on the schedule side. So that's why. And I haven't even taken a sip of this yet. Heck yeah. Just a cheap bottle of Buffalo Trace to keep in the motorhome. Okay. Today we're going to talk about why I won't review every inexpensive guitar. So one of the questions that's come up a bunch this week is, well, you need to try a Firefly. You need to try, all these other brands. And I don't really have any interest in reviewing all those guitars. But I have a bunch of reasons for that. And I think if I say that, people are like, there he goes, back to hating cheap guitars again. And that's not the reason. It actually has to, I believe it's more helpful to do it this way. So we'll talk about it. One of the things we kind of have to, let's get the cheap guitar thing out of the way. One of the things we kind of have to admit, okay, you have to admit, is that most of these guitars, especially under the $500 range, are not fundamentally different. They are all manufactured in very similar types of factories, types of materials. All this stuff is very, very similar. And so you're getting, I'm not going to say that you're getting the same guitar with a different name on the peg head. However, I have seen that. We've gone to NAMM shows and stuff and seen various brands, and they're all basically, they came out of the same factory. They're all going to be built to an established price point. So that's going to mean that the materials, the machine work, the hardware quality will be pretty predictable. This is nothing against those guitars. Just in this particular tier, they don't really have a choice. The quality control tolerances, all those kinds of things are all going to be pretty similar across the board. And you're going to say, well, but I've got this guitar and it's way better than that one. Oh, okay, that's cool. And you may have different qualities of, you may have experienced a higher quality guitar in this particular price point than this other brand, whatever. But that doesn't change the fact that all of these things are really built to that price. Okay. It doesn't mean that they're all identical. It doesn't mean that one's bad or one's good or anything. It just means that they're generally, the differences between them in manufacturing costs and processes and parts costs and all that kind of stuff. They're very parts binny kind of guitars, like the bridge on this guitar might be on 5 different brands of guitars. Instead of it being a completely new proposition, like a completely new idea, these are just sort of, the differences aren't substantial enough to treat them as new ideas. They're kind of just sort of a bit all the same. The reason is because they're built in these tiers, like we said. So, the $300 to $500 thing, the $500 to $800, and kind of all guitars are this way. But when you get in the really inexpensive stuff, there becomes a larger number of brands that becomes more compressed into this smaller price point, into this lower price point. Because here's the thing, is none of these guys, as much as some of you want to believe this, it's not true. None of these companies have figured out some magical way to put $1,000 guitar into a $249 box. They just haven't done it. You could argue that point all you want, but bring me 10 of them and I'll show you why. It's very easy to quantify the reason these guitars all fall into this price point. Again, nothing wrong with them. I'm just saying they're all sort of there. So you're honestly better off thinking more simply about it. Instead of what brand is the best, what, value, all that kind of stuff. What shape do you like? What color do you like? What pickup configuration do you need? Have you heard good things about the brand? That kind of stuff. Honestly, pick what color you like might be the most powerful thing in that whole list. When somebody says, what do you think of this guitar? I want to know which one's the best value for money. I want to know which one is the best one for the money. I have to take a drink before I explain this. People want a universal declaration of value. This is the best value for money. This is the best guitar for the money. Is this guitar worth the money? That is an incomplete review. Here's why. We don't know who the guitar's for, first of all. Everybody has a different value proposition, so we don't know who the guitar is for. A $250 guitar might be a great value for somebody who has wants a first guitar, although I wouldn't recommend a $250 guitar for a first guitar. At least not these that we're talking about. Maybe they use it as a backup. Maybe they play it on the beach so it doesn't get, their good guitar doesn't get rusty. Maybe they want it for a modding platform. Maybe they want a guitar that they can leave in their motorhome, maybe they want to experiment with pickup configurations, and this guitar's got that, and so I can put any pickups I want, of these brands, and I can try stuff. That's pretty cool. Then the value proposition for those things really, really comes into play. The same guitar might be a poor value proposition for somebody who wants a turnkey guitar with excellent fretwork, with professional reliability, with super dependable electrical components, strong resale value, dealer support, all those things. That's not a good value for that person. So it's hard to say this is a great guitar, that it's a great value for money. The price doesn't answer that question. Okay. So use case is probably more important than the actual instrument itself. What are you using it for? And when you say, I want a modding platform, I want a guitar that A, I can afford, and B, I want a modding platform, I want it to be a Les Paul shape, then you could go into that $250, $350, $400 price point and basically pick whichever one you want. And I'm not saying that they're all going to be the same, but it's pretty safe to say that consistently across that price point, because there's so many packed into there, that you could probably find one that you like and be really happy with without overthinking it. And don't forget, the investment isn't very high, so you have a lot to play around with there. You can have fun doing that. This is the reason I don't do these kind of reviews, is because I don't believe in trying to find the best value on the market for everybody or for etc. I think that those kind of reviews are too general, and I think they're not as helpful. I want to know, okay, first, here's my kind of criteria for if a product is good or not. First of all, what does it promise? So what does it say on the tin? Does it do what it says on the tin? Yes. No. It's trying, but the software sucks, right? Like those kind of things. But if this is the spec sheet and it pulls it off, and they said this is what we want it to do, then it's a good product because it does what they say it's supposed to do. It's good. It's good. Now, do you think it sounds good? Maybe not, but everybody's ear is different, so that's not helpful, right? Who is it supposed to be for? Well, if it's a $400 price point guitar, chances are it's for the guy who wants to mod and not have a high investment. It's also for the guy who is a beginner but still wants to fix his guitar and make it good. Does it accomplish the goal reliably? And then what compromises were made to reach that price point that could take away from a good experience for somebody, right? And do those compromises, in this case, matter for the specific user? Example, these guitars have really cheap feeling finishes, but you may not care, right? So the inexpensive guitar guy is going to say that all the fancy things like nitrocellulose lacquer and all those things that come on a Gibson don't enhance the playing experience for him. Therefore, that's why he wants the more inexpensive guitar, because he doesn't think that that stuff adds value to him. Fair point. Perfectly fair point. So those compromises in not quality, but those compromises in features and, stuff aren't compromises to you. You find value in them. So that's perfect, but not everybody does. So it's hard to just wave a magic wand and say, this is a good value guitar for everybody. It doesn't make either of us wrong. It's just, I like nitrocellulose finishes. You may not think it's worth paying for. That's okay. Neither of us are wrong. It's just kind of a different thing. So, the way I do typically is I just want to make sure that it does what it's supposed to do. And try to understand who the product is intended for. Typically, there's no such thing as bad gear. Usually with a problem, when somebody says that thing sucks, it's because they're trying to make a product fit them that wasn't meant for them, right? So if you take a Positive Grid Spark Mini and you tried to gig with it, or you're an audiophile who taps on everything that's wooden to find out what the tone is of it, then chances are you're not going to like that thing, right? Because you go a different direction to find your tone. So it's not that the product is bad, it's just that it's not for you. And so that's one of the things we try to do. With these inexpensive guitars, you can generalize more with them, and so it doesn't make it effective for my type of reviews to do that stuff. Here's what I would do if I was you, and you were shopping in this price tier, okay, in the $300 to $500 range guitar. Before you watch a bunch of reviews, because there's just going to be a bunch of people that say, oh, look at this bridge, look at that, this is better than that one, and blah, blah, blah. This is surprisingly good for the money. And that it just doesn't, it's not very helpful. The review really should say, here is another guitar-shaped thing that functions as a guitar in this price point. If you like its specifications, if it comes in a color that you like, then buy it from somewhere that has a good return policy. End of story. That's every $300 to $500 guitar gear review guitar review should just sound like that. That's what it should be. Just a couple of sentences. So, that being said, how do you choose? Well, you choose for you. Don't choose for what somebody else has reviewed on the internet. Well, what do I want this guitar to do? What specifications are important to me personally, and what will I actually notice when I'm playing? That can change with time as you learn, right? So right now, what's important to me? What will I feel? Fat neck, thin neck, whatever. Am I comfortable doing or paying for the work necessary to get the guitar playable if it's not 100% correct, knowing that in this price tier, it's taking a little bit of a chance? Am I willing to invest that time? You may get a perfect one. You may not get a perfect one. Are you willing to invest in that? Will I replace hardware? Will I replace pickups? Do I need consistency, or am I okay with fiddling with it a little bit if it needs to be fiddled with? Am I going to want to return it, or am I going to be worried because there's tariffs on it and lots of shipping, and I'm going to lose some of the money that I've invested if it's something that I need to return. Am I buying a tool for work that needs to be reliable and good? Am I buying an experiment that I can take apart and put back together and play around with? Or, maybe I just really like how it looks and I think it's cool and I'm going to play it sometimes, right? Those are all valid questions that I would ask instead of, is this guitar good? Is this guitar good enough for the money? Think more specifically about your personal use case. And that's why I'm not going to review all of these inexpensive guitars, because I think if you break it down for those few little questions, then I think you can review every inexpensive guitar and probably get it pretty close to right. And also, I think that's why so many of you are not disappointed with them, because you have done that. And I think it's great. I want the guitar to be good. I want it to work. I don't want to have any problems with it. That's why I'm disappointed with my Harley Benton. Most of you who buy them expect, like we talked about, to do these modifications, to play around with it, to throw some pickups in it, to do all this stuff, have to do this work. Some of you guys have been saying that you'll pull frets and level fretboards and then refret. I am not doing that on a $250, $300 guitar. I'm just not doing it. It's a waste of my time. But you guys love that. That's awesome. And I think that's why so many of you are happy with them, where I was not. Your use case is different. So think about your use case, less about the guitar itself. Thanks for hanging out. See you tomorrow.